Hello, I'm Bruce Whitfield, and welcome to A Seat at the Table, a 360-degree virtual reality experience which gets you to participate in the podcast like you never have before. We've got some of the brightest people in the country discussing some of the most topical and pressing business issues of the moment. So we've reserved for you a seat at the table. Hello, welcome to your seat at the table. Make yourself nice and comfortable because you need to listen to a fairly tough conversation about your right to do business. My right to do business? I've got every right to do business. Yes, you do, but the obligation on you has got bigger and bigger and bigger. You think you pay your taxes, you employ people, they pay their taxes, and you've fulfilled your social contract. But have you really? Just have a listen to our experts around the table today and see whether or not you in fact do earn that space in the society that you serve. David Shapiro, he is a stockbroker of many years' experience. And then we've got Tela Mabasa. She is with Nedbank. She bullies people at Nedbank about their right to do business all the time. And then from KD Capital, Khulekani Dlamini. And at the end of the table is a futurist. His name is Neil Jacobsohn. I'm going to start with you, Neil Jacobsohn. The business of doing business is business. Discuss.
That may well have been a viewpoint from the antediluvian dinosaur centuries, but it certainly ain't anymore. Wherever I go in the world now, the discussion is either about two things: conscious capitalism, in other words, a kinder form of capitalism, or what people are calling the 3 Ps: people, planet, and purpose. In other words, business has a greater role, a much greater role than simply making a profit. Making a profit is an outcome, not a purpose. And the purpose of business surely is to make life better. And that's life better for people and life better for the planet. And that's becoming a real focus everywhere we go in the world.
David Shapiro, you started out as a stockbroker in 1972. The purpose then was making money for self, and a self-sustaining organism that paid its taxes fulfilled its social duty back then.
Interesting to analyze what companies looked like in those days. First of all, they were opaque. You never knew what was happening there. And I also think the leaders were demagogues. You never ever questioned what they did. And also information was very difficult to get hold of. You never had internet, you never had radio shows like yours, TV shows like yours, where information was discussed on a broader front. So you took what you got.
Absolutely, but Tela, I mean, you bully executives on this point all the time, I'm sure, reminding people that actually part of doing business, especially in a place like South Africa, which has got such a divisive history, which has got such a dark past, which has got such a complex way out of that sense of inequality, that it's not simply good enough to make a profit anymore.
No,
just make a profit.
Absolutely. And I think when we have such conversation, one would say, but I also have a social investment. I have a foundation there, I give children there, it's more than that.
You add hope at KFC.
No, absolutely. But it's more than that. It is your social license to operate. How transparent are you? Because your stakeholders and your dividends, it's no longer those who get dividends. Your shareholders are not that. Your consumers are your shareholders. They want to have a voice in the way you talk to them. And I'm just going to put a spin. We have the Dove situation that just happened internationally now. And those people, if they decided tomorrow, if engagements were had with the shareholders, which are the consumers.
Social media was full of dustbins,
Absolutely.
Full of Dove products.
Absolutely. So what we're saying is that, are you having the conversation with the stakeholders, which are your communities, where you're operating? Are you hearing how you're going to take your product and present it to them? Are they having an input? Because if, as we have moved on, the input is immediate.
Khulekani, I mean, you're in this segment. You're in this SMME segment. You start your own business. You run your own business.
Yes.
You think to yourself, another box to tick, another obligation, because that's what you're thinking. Let's be honest about it. You're thinking, I've got enough to do in my day.
Sure.
I mean, you've got enough to do in your day as well.
It's tough.
Does any of this stuff make sense to you?
It does. I mean, so the challenge here is we work in a world where I think social capital is very important, right? So you can't dismiss it. At the end of the day, if you do, as she said, your clients will just leave. They've got so many more options than, you back in the days of Dave where there were maybe two stockbrokers in the country. If you didn't like Dave, then you'd have to go to that one person. The other part is the challenge. It's also the people that you employ. You know, back in the days of, sorry, Dave, I keep picking on you, but back in the 70s and all those days, the idea of a services business wasn't a dominant thing, right? Services businesses were at the periphery. It was a manufacturing-led type of, economy. So
people were less important. I mean, nobody's ever been unimportant.
You were a widget.
But people were dispensable. Nowadays, building teams, and Neil Jacobsohn, I'm sure you will come to the party in this one, you have like-minded people around a table, diverse yet like-minded, people with a shared sense of purpose.
And you're learning that from that diversity comes enormous strength. Sure. Because there's huge insights that you don't get. Much of the trouble with the kind of business that I also grew up with, David, was that it was the same people talking to each other about the same things. We went to the same schools, we had the same background, and we saw nowhere beyond our own horizons. Now, exactly as Tela said, transparency has become the driving force. We call it naked leadership. And you know, that business person sitting out there watching this, you're standing naked in front of the market right now. They want to know everything about you. They want to see the marketplace. They want to see where you've come from, what you're doing, who your suppliers are. They want to see upstream of your business. They want to know about you personally. You're naked as a leader in the marketplace now because of the transparency and because exactly the point you make. Your customers have a power that they've never ever had before. We've truly reached the era where the customer is king. They're in charge. That handheld device gives them access to almost everything.
When I started out, I first did articles. I opened up an account at Standard Bank, and I know this is not the right thing to say, but I've still got that account. I've still got that account.
We can change that.
I never changed, because I got into a comfort zone. Today, young people don't do that. Today they can, as Neil said, they will change their account. Now, why do I point that out? Is that in our industry, in the stockbroking or financial services industry, what we have learned is that 85% of our clients' children will not deal with us or not want to deal with us. Why? Because of exactly that. You know, walking in with this old-fashioned attitude of, I looked after your parents' business, therefore I will look after you in the same way. Things have changed, and what they look at, they don't care about that. They ask the questions that we're asking around. Who are you? Absolutely. What do you do for the community? You know, what do you pay yourself?
What's your purpose?
What do you pay yourself? You know, in light of all these things versus what you pay the workers. And so those things are a lot more transparent, which you have to be conscious of.
Absolutely. Our consciousness has changed as customers. We are more, I was telling the team earlier, is that millenniums have moved. We now have very conscious people. More than spending their rent, they want to know, what are you doing? How transparent are you? Transparency, community engagement, and education. When you say stockbroking, give me the education. What are you about? But not 10 slides, straight to the point. And I think that's what you're experiencing. 10 points, clean. And that's what needs to happen. And who are you engaging? Are you talking to people like me? Because today I'm always evolving. Every day I'm changing. And if you're not talking to me and you don't have the bullies like me in place who understand that people are in a constant flux, in a constant change, you will be sitting with like-minded people doing the same thing every day, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to close down. So we say, start engaging, and start making the time.
And it's even simpler than this. It's about your ethics, it's about levels of integrity, it's about whether people want to be associated with you. Big scandals in South Africa.
You have now opened an enormous can of worms.
Let's not name names, but in South Africa today, there are certain companies that people will go nowhere near, and it's a slow burn to oblivion.
And Bruce, I want to make a really powerful point, I think, over there. If we're asking what is our license to do business, we know that the biggest cancer eating away at our society is corruption. And we know that it's not merely government, it's now spread right across business and all sorts of places. So what can you do to contribute to society as a business? Well, for a start, go back to the point of being honest, introducing integrity, ensuring that your procurement is above board and so forth. If you give in to the scourge of corruption, we are all sinking into this pit. It is not a victimless crime, it destroys our society.
The temptation is, well, everybody's doing it. And I'm sure people have come across your desk and have said, how about we just do this? And you've got to have the decency and the integrity to say no. And courage to say no, because you're going to be judged by your shareholders or your stakeholders that like your growth isn't as much as Johnny's down the road.
You're going to be turning away business.
And you've got to have the guts to do that.
But isn't the challenge the regulatory environment? I mean, in the financial services environment, what we're seeing now is, capital being forced to be retained by financial institutions, and that means returns are lower, right? If you think about many other industries,
But you can't blame you can't blame the regulatory environment for lapses in judgment and for a loss of integrity.
But I think what that does is it says to people, you are allowed to play within this ambit, right? As long as you're within here, all good, right? But if I'm innovative and I can think a little bit outside the box, I'm still fine. And the regulation allows for you to do that. And I'm not saying I condone it. I'm just saying the regulatory burden has gotten so large and so prescriptive that people basically say, I want to comply, take BEE. BEE is such an easy one, right? Because what people do is they say, I'll find Khulekani, I'll put him in front of everybody else and say he owns 50% of the business. But I will also indebt him like infinitely. So after 20 years,
He'll be begging
only
to
owns 5% of
Yeah.
the business. So I think one of the challenges that we have is not only should we look at individuals, I think we should look at the things that push and channel individuals into specific behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, David, let's just wrap up. But if you don't want to see yourself splashed over the front page of the newspaper or a banner headline on the internet tomorrow, behave with decency, whether it be with regard to BEE deals or whether it be with regard to procurement or the auditors you use or the consultants you use. If you don't want to be associated with bad news, behave better.
Absolutely. And I wish we had the time to discuss how we look at companies, the depth to which we look at. And it's not CFA stuff, we don't go look at the spreadsheets.
It's
but
the so-called
rather
soft stuff.
The people who are running it. Who are they running it for? Are they running it for themselves, to make money from people, or are they going to run it to make money for people? And that's a very important aspect. So
Okay, I'm going to hit pause on that one. Thank you, David Shapiro. Neil, last thought from you?
I want to go back to something infinitely practical. We're talking high philosophical stuff over here. How practically do you help society? I came across the most astonishing article from a guy called David Harrison, who runs the D.G. Murray Trust. Big contributor. They run Nali Bali, which educates 64,000 young children in reading skills across this country. And he said, what can you do to benefit society without costing your company a great deal? And he gives the example of a company called Barrows in Durban, who produce advertising material. They realized that there were thousands and thousands of what they call white offcuts. They now take those offcuts, which they used to throw away. They produce tens of thousands of games for children, educational pamphlets, all educational aids. It's costing them virtually nothing. Now, I challenge every business person out there. What's the waste in your company that right now you're throwing away that you could, at almost no cost, turn into a real educational opportunity or a learning, a social opportunity?
You've been told, and you're thinking, which is good. We like the fact that you're thinking. Khulekani?
Look, having looked at companies for over 20 years, one of the key things that you cannot teach, I think as Dave was saying, is integrity. If a person is a crook, they're a crook, right? And one of the guys that I like listening to is Charlie Munger at the Berkshire Hathaway. It says one of the things he says is, if you find an awesome business, right, but it's got crooked management, you stay away, because those are the people that are going to take your money, your shareholders' money, and if you've got pension funds, your pension beneficiaries.
And they might not do it today.
Yeah.
They'll
But
do
they'll
it when
do
you've
it
given
over
them
time.
enough money
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.